Hi, I'm Jake Miller, host of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Be sure to check out all of our other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com. And get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1...
Hello, friends. It's Sam Fessich here. I am so excited to share a conversation that I had with Erin Lewis. Let me share a little bit about who she is before we jump into our conversation. Erin Lewis holds a Bachelor of Science in Music Education and a Master of Science in Education. Both are from Clarion University in Pennsylvania. Over the years, she has taught elementary music, middle school band, and spent a few years during graduate school as a preschool teacher. Erin currently has a full studio of private voice students and can often be found performing a variety of events throughout the Western Pennsylvania area. Erin currently works at Clarion University in the Center for Career and Professional Development and serves as a career liaison to the arts, communication, languages, public, and human services students, as well as environmental and natural resources and math students. Erin has completed the National Association of Colleges and Employers Career Coaching Intensive Training. She advises Phi Eta Sigma, the Freshman Honorary Society, and serves as a program mentor to the Sigma Phi Epsilon. Erin is currently pursuing a doctoral degree in communications, media, and instructional technology at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. She enjoys studying charisma and confidence, particularly as it relates to young adults and social media usage. Friends, I met Erin at the EDLC conference at Clarion University in June. We hit it off right away with our love for social media and preparing students to be social media savvy. I can't wait for you to listen in on our conversation as we talk all things job fairs. Now, friends, remember, if you are on the go when you're listening to this podcast, Erin created a beautiful freebie that goes through all the tips and strategies that she shares during our conversation, and it'll be linked in the show notes below. So buckle up, listen in. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation with Erin Lewis. Let's get started. Hello, Edu Magicians. Dr. Sam Fessich here with another episode of the Edu Magic Podcast, the podcast that is designed to help you become an educator of excellence during your college career. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin when you walk across the stage of graduation, but instead, teaching begins during your first college class at 8 a.m. So, let's get the party started. Welcome back to another episode of the Edu Magic Podcast. I am here with Erin Lewis. As you heard in her bio, she's an amazing educator, and she is here to share with you some top tips to help you rock your job fair experience. So without further ado, we're going to get started with exactly what is a job fair and what can we expect whenever we open those doors to a job fair.
So a job fair is actually sometimes called a career fair or a career expo. So you might hear it like an education career expo or something along that line. But basically it's an event and there's a lot of employers or recruiters or school districts. And basically they're there to talk about their school, their opportunities, potential jobs with job seekers. These can be very large events or they're where there's like hundreds of employers and thousands of job seekers. They can be smaller scale, like maybe your college or university hosts their own teacher job fair, or they can be virtual. With the technology we have today, there's even opportunities to attend a job fair via the virtual. Sometimes they're just platforms where you log into a system, or sometimes there's different things that you download or log into. And this is great if you know you're relocating to a very specific geographic area or a different state or even a different country to meet with recruiters.
Excellent. Thank you. Whenever we walk into a job fair or a career expo or whatever we want to call it,
right,
what can we expect when we open those doors?
Well, I always tell my students to expect the unexpected, obviously, but also expect large crowds and long lines and lots of noise. If you're somebody like me who tends to be overwhelmed with that sort of environment, getting an understanding in advance that is going to be very overwhelming is good to understand and expect up front. Also expect a registration line or check-in of some sort. I would also really encourage you to pre-register in advance. Typically, this will save you a latte money. Nice. Yes, I meant that. You'll be exhausted at the end of the day, and honestly, stopping at a coffee shop or something like that on your way home, you can save the money that you would have spent at the job fair paying like a same day registration money, because it usually tends to be more. You can save that money and spend it on yourself to pamper yourself a little bit at the end of the day.
Love it.
But expect to meet with several recruiters and school districts and hiring professionals and to talk about yourself over and over and over again and say the same things over and over and over again. It's a very repetitive day, kind of like if you are a secondary ed teacher and you're teaching the same lesson over and over again. It gets to be like that. You can expect screening interviews. So this is not the final interview where you're going to be asked to teach a lesson or go in depth about that. So really, strengths and weaknesses and questions that might reflect that you've done some research about the schools or programs. And I always, always, always like to remind candidates that you are going to hear the words apply online over and over and over again, just because of the nature of how the application process works.
Excellent. Thank you. So those are great things to expect when we get into that job fair. When we open those doors, it's going to be a little crazy, but you know what? We got this. We pre-registered. What else can we do to prepare ourselves before the job interview or before the job fair even starts? What are some strategies that we can use to prepare ourselves?
Well, I actually took the liberty to break it down into my top 10 job fair success tips. So we'll start with tip number 1, and that is it all begins with your quality resume. Before you do anything with the job search, you really should have a very high quality professional resume that's polished. And I am going to say probably use your Career Center 10 million times during this podcast, but I can't stress that enough. Use your Career Center's resume review services. Most Career Centers have that. A lot of people I talk to say, oh, I went online and I paid all this money. Well, most of your career centers provide that tool and that resource to you either at a very low cost or sometimes even no cost. So the Career Center staff, they know what the employers are looking for. They know how the resume should look and what order the information should be in. They know about the industry keywords and what employers expect in a resume, and they pass that information off to you. Once you get your resume polished and professional, you will want to print off several copies of your resume to take along with you to the job fair. You want at least one resume for every school that you plan to talk with, and then several extra copies. I talked with a young man who went to a job fair this past spring, and he only took along 5 copies with him of his resume. He said, I only wanted to talk to 5 companies. And then I met this really interesting company and I didn't have anything to give them because I'd given out my resume to the other 5 companies. So don't be that kid, because obviously if you can't give the employer your resume, you're maybe not going to stand out and you're not going to look prepared. And it's kind of like going to school and not doing your homework. So it's a good idea to just have several extra copies. I usually recommend 40 to 50 copies for a job fair. I know that seems like a lot, and I don't take lightly that it does cost money to print resumes. But it's an investment that you're making in your career, in your job search, and it's a resume. You will use it, I promise.
Right.
The other thing to think about, and this isn't exactly a resume, but it goes along with that, is to consider bringing along business cards and your teaching portfolio. I know a lot of people say, I only have an online portfolio. If you can find a few artifacts to kind of swing together a very small teacher portfolio to take to these events, it will come in very handy as maybe you want to reference something in the interviews, or maybe you are talking specifically about a reading program and you saw that their school uses that same reading program. Having that portfolio handy will be really helpful. And business cards are great because there are instances where a recruiter might say something like, can't accept your resume because it makes you an official candidate, and we're not allowed to do that at job fairs. So if you have a business card, you can offer your business card that might have your name and your phone number, your email, your school, your certification areas, at least something to give to that person to say, I totally understand. Would you be able to accept my business card instead? And you can offer that so they have something. It's also great to exchange with fellow job seekers. Maybe you meet an alumni from your school and they're recruiting someplace and maybe you're not interested in going to that school, but you want to stay connected. It's just a great thing to have. And, before we did this, I just looked at, you can print about 100 business cards for $16 on Vistaprint. And so I'm a huge fan of Vistaprint, lots of options. It's very professional. They do all of the legwork for you and design work. So it's a great resource and it's really affordable.
Right. I totally agree. Vistaprint, all you have to do is write the content and the design work is done for you. It looks beautiful. It's easy. It's user-friendly. But if we don't have access to Vistaprint, maybe we're poor college students, we're on ramen noodle budget, as Kathleen Trace likes to say. Yep. What are some of our other options?
You can go to your local office store and you can get your own packages of business card templates and you can print those off yourself for relatively inexpensive as well. You wouldn't have to quite maybe have so many. Maybe you only print about 40 or 50 business cards, which is maybe a little bit more affordable. I totally understand the ramen noodle budget. Mm-hmm. The other thing I've seen people do is instead of business cards, they've put together a little trifold brochure. It's a little outside the box, but it kind of ties together the portfolio, the business card, and it's just something else that you can leave with them. I have some employers, particularly regional school districts, who say not a lot of people are doing that, and it's just a fun way of standing out in the crowd.
And how can we make our business cards stand out a little bit? What are our non-negotiables? What do we need to have on there? And what are some ways we can amp it up?
So you can amp it by including your social media. Maybe you include a QR code to your online portfolio, maybe your LinkedIn profile. Those are great ways if somebody wants to connect with you or reconnect with you because they've connected with you at the job fair. Phone number, email. I highly encourage certification areas because, there's a lot of people and it's sometimes hard to remember who is what. Obviously your name, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, that is a non-negotiable.
Yeah. You would think as teachers, we don't have to say that, but I've taught long enough to know that put your name on the paper is an important thing to make, an important statement.
Absolutely.
All right, friends, I just want to pause us here. Remember, all these tips and strategies that Erin's sharing with us can be found at www.sfessich.com/10. That's 10. I'll repeat that. It's www.sfessich.com/ and the number 10. I can't wait for you to check it out.
Besides having lots of copies of our resume and some business cards at hand, what are some other strategies we need to have prepared or things we need to have prepared for us to be successful at a job fair?
You absolutely need to have your elevator pitch perfected. And that's my tip number 2. For those of you who aren't familiar with elevator pitch, this is your 30-second commercial to make a sincere and memorable impression. It gets the school district's attention and introduces you in a very short period of time. And this is sort of your verbal business card. It's your name, your school, your certification area or areas, your experiences with children and teaching. You also want to reflect on the type of opportunity that you're seeking and maybe a strength or qualification you have that relates to this position, something that sets you apart from the thousands of other applicants and candidates that they're talking with. An example might be you extend your hand to shake the recruiter's hand and wear your beautiful smile. Hi, my name is Jane, and I am a secondary education mathematics major at ABC College, and I have been working with children since I was in 10th grade. I was a camp counselor at a STEM camp for girls each summer since 10th grade on, and have the opportunity to teach many different levels of mathematics during student teaching. I see your school has an opening for a math teacher, and I am especially interested in relocating to South Carolina. Can you tell me more about your school district?
I want to know more about Jane.
Right?
That I'm hooked in. I perked up when she said STEM camp and all of her different experiences teaching different levels of math. You hit on all those areas, but it was fluid and it was conversational.
Right.
It didn't sound like a robot.
Exactly. And that's really my big tip with the elevator pitch. You want it to sound smooth, natural, and conversational, not robotic and not rehearsed. So a tip that I give to the students I work with is to take your phone and use the recording, like the voice memo feature on your phone, to record yourself practicing your elevator pitch. That gives you the opportunity to, one, practice, but also to listen to it, to see, am I sounding robotic? Am I sounding rehearsed? Do I sound like I've been saying this 4,000 times? Because that's really important. You want it to sound natural and conversational.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Thank you.
You'll want to make sure that you stand out and shine during your elevator pitch at the job fair, like the edgy magician that you are.
Love it.
So remind yourself that the employers have paid a lot of money to come to this job fair and to meet you. They really did. They came to meet you. They might not know who you are, but by the time that they are done with talking to you at the fair, they'll know who you are. So put on your beautiful smile. It's your best accessory, and walk right up to the recruiter with confidence and just extend your hand and introduce yourself with your elevator pitch. I know it's scary. I don't like talking to strangers. I get very intimidated in large crowds, but you have to do a lot of self-talk and a lot of positive body language. Sometimes you might have to go into the bathroom and hold that superhero pose for 30 seconds just to pump yourself up. But it's an important part of the job fair process, and in general, just being a professional.
Absolutely. Thank you. These are excellent tips. Keep them coming.
All right. Tip number 3 is to research. I know that you might think, gosh, I just finished school. I don't want to research or do any more homework. But finding a job is a job in and of itself. And so you want to use the job fair directory. And sometimes that's an app. Sometimes it's just a website. Heck, sometimes it's as simple as you are emailed an Excel document and you have to kind of go in and dig around a little bit to see who's coming to the fair. But use the school's websites to help you figure out, does this school district's goals seem to align with my skills? You can check out their mission statement, check out, maybe they have school blogs, maybe some of their teachers have personal websites. A lot of schools have social media these days. Check all of those things out to see what you can find out. And sometimes it's as simple as, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just trying to look for something that might resonate with me. And that's a great way to approach it, keeping an open mind. LinkedIn is another hugely valuable resource when it comes to doing research for job fairs or in job searching in general. LinkedIn is great because a lot of school districts might have a LinkedIn profile. The recruiters who are coming to the fair might have a LinkedIn profile. But the secret of LinkedIn is you can go to linkedin.com/alumni and connect with other alumni who might actually work at those schools. And you can just reach out to them and say something like, hi, my name is Erin. I see that you went to this school like me, and I'm applying for a position at your school district. I was wondering if we might be able to talk a little about your experiences. Newsflash, people love to talk about themselves.
Oh, really?
They do. So generally, when you tell somebody that you have a connection, maybe it's the same school, maybe you're from the same hometown, heck, maybe you even went to the same high school as this person, you can go all the way back, right? And ask them about, how was it like relocating? Can you tell me about the school? Tell me about the initiatives that they're doing. What's it like to live in that community? What are the families like? What are the students like? And then when you get to the job fair and you're talking with the recruiters, you will look like a golden star among the sea of dim light bulbs, because that just shows that you've gone above and beyond to do your research for that school.
Absolutely. I love that. Having a LinkedIn profile, popping that on your business card or using a QR code to shoot out to there. Having your LinkedIn profile is like that digital handshake.
It really is.
They can put so much on there and really dive deeper into some of their passion areas and things that they've done throughout their college career.
And LinkedIn is also like an extra portfolio. There are opportunities for you to share links to artifacts, maybe lesson plans you wrote, maybe videos of you teaching, maybe some bulletin boards. So it's an opportunity for them to see a little snapshot of who you are. And then, of course, you can link to your actual portfolio that has a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, it's a great extension of that business card, that trifold, that resume. Yeah, thank you so much, Erin. All right, hook us up with some more tips. These are excellent.
So tip number 4 is a little bit long, and there's a lot of information, so stick with me, friends.
Hey guys, it's Sam. Finding a teaching job can be really tough, and finding the right teaching job for you can be even harder. You know, summer may be hot, but you don't have to sweat. AAEE has you covered. Attend the AAEE Job Fair on Friday, July 26th at the Allegheny Intermediate Unit. just outside of Pittsburgh to find your perfect match. Districts from around the local area and across the country are ready with jobs to offer. Whether you're looking for your first teaching job or just want to see what options are out there, you'll be sure to make a great connection that you won't regret. You may walk away with a copy of the AAEE Job Search Handbook for Educators. Candidate registration is always free, so go online to aaee.org/summer-job-fair now. And now, back to the interview.
Tip number 4 is to be strategic and create a game plan. So once we've done our research, we've identified some schools in which we're interested in, and we need to now divide it up into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is your top 5 schools, your first choice, the best schools, the ones you're most interested in. Tier number 2 is like, they're not interesting, but they're also not really popping out at me. And tier number 3 is what I call our warm-up tier, and it's maybe only like 2 or 3 schools. And again, these numbers are just guidelines. It could be less, it could be more, but approximate. So you've divided, now it's time to conquer. And we're actually not going to conquer tier 1 first. It sounds like we would, but
yes,
we're going to start with tier number 3. So this is our warm-up tier. And if you're interested in these schools, because we don't want to waste a recruiter's time. We don't want to go to a school district in ABC state and take their time and take time away from other job seekers and candidates. That's really not professional or polite. These are schools that you're interested in, but maybe you couldn't find a lot of information out about them. Or maybe you've heard good remarks and maybe not so good remarks, and you're trying to get a feel for yourself. So 2 or 3 schools, and this is where you start to practice your elevator pitch. You start with, that whole presenting your resume or presenting your business card and just getting used to being in that environment and talking with a recruiter and having all of this noise and long lines and all these distractions. So it's just a place to get started and get more comfortable. Once you're comfortable and ready to tackle tier 1, we'll move on to your top choice schools. And the reason why we don't go right into tier number 2, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, is tier number 2 is kind of the if I get time for it schools. So we want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk to our first choice schools. So tier 3 warm-up round, tier 1 top choice schools. And this is where you want to spend the bulk of your time talking with these schools. And then tier number 2 is once you've talked with all the schools in your tier 1, it's the schools that are, if you have time to kind of circle back and talk to these schools and you ask them the questions and make those decisions. Create a list of the schools you plan to visit. I like to take just a plain piece of notebook paper and write it down. It's the teacher in me. I like to write with pencil and paper. Jot a few notes down for each school. This could include the school's mission statement. This could include questions that you plan to ask at the table when you're talking. So as an edumagician, you want to make a cheat sheet for each school and highlight those few things you want to point out, maybe why it's interesting to you, maybe alumni you've connected with, and then you want to map out where each booth is located using the job fair floor plan. So you're not running around on a wild goose chase. Okay, here's my tier 3 schools, here's where they're located. Here's my tier 1 schools, here's where they're located. Here's my tier 2, here's where they're located. That way you can spend your time taking notes and talking with recruiters and not running around like a crazy person, because these environments are really large and can be overwhelming. So remember back at what to expect at a job fair, long lines. Don't spend all of your time at the job fair in a line just to talk to one school. Make a plan, but be flexible. It's kind of like when you're teaching kindergarten.
Thank you. So if we went to our tier 1 schools, we went to our tier 3 schools. Do you recommend within our tier 1 maybe doing a little mini list within there? What's our absolute favorite? We really want to go there. Should we go there last in our tier 1, or how should we organize that?
That's a great question. And that kind of goes back to the make a plan, but be flexible. I know here in Pennsylvania, Hershey School District or Penn State School District, those school districts tend to be really, really popular and are first choice for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, but they have really long lines. And so if you go to your tier 1 top school and they have a really long line, kind of circle back to that. And after you've kind of gone to all of your schools and you've checked a lot of them off the list, circle back to that line, and it's probably a little bit shorter. Maybe that's first school you go to after your warm up. You sort of have to be flexible and gauge the line length and where things are, because, after the recruiters have talked to 5,000 people, if you're, 5,001, they're going to be tired, they're going to be exhausted, and you might not get 100% of them.
Right.
Think about how you feel at the end of your teaching day. You're exhausted, you're tired, you've talked to everybody. It's really hard to kind of soak things in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's important to have that really strong elevator pitch and to connect with them and make that relationship pop. But you really got to be flexible and kind of go with the flow and just gauge it and use your best judgment. There really is no right or wrong answer to when you should go. You just got to kind of go with the flow at that point.
Thank you. Now, I know whenever we go into a job fair, there's a kind of a rhythm to it. We go, we connect with the school. Then what do we do? What do we do after? We go through, we give them our resume or our business card. We ask a few questions. What's a rhythm we can kind of get into that where we're doing the same thing, being repetitive, but also getting information and giving great information?
Right. So I'm going to kind of talk about that with tip number 9 with taking notes, but definitely get into your rhythm, get into your groove, elevator pitch, talk with the employer, offer your resume, ask some questions, have back and forth dialogue. And once you're done with that booth, kind of step off to the side and write everything down and take really good notes. If there's any steps that you need to take afterwards, write all of that down and then review the next booth that you plan to talk with, and then move on and just kind of rinse and repeat that throughout the whole day.
All right. So we're down to our last tip for this session. Can you share our last tip, tip number 5?
Just like we want our students to do, we want to be good students and we want to ask quality questions of the recruiters. So this means you have to do a little homework in advance. So you want to think about what kind of environment you want to work in, and then ask questions that will help you find this fit. So it may seem like a job fair is all about getting a job. And while, yes, that's kind of the point of a job fair,
right,
it's also about finding the right job for you. And trust me, friends, I know that the job search is one that is taxing emotionally, mentally, physically. It's just exhausting. And I was a mid-August hire. So you kind of get into panic mode after a while, but you really need to just take a breath and reflect and keep in mind that it really is about finding a job, but finding the right job. So you want to ask questions that will help you determine this fit. And so I'm going to share with you a few that I think are really helpful. One is to ask, why is this position open? The answer to this question might tell you how long you're going to spend with this recruiter. If they say things like, well, we have a really high turnover rate and can't keep teachers, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Chances are they're probably not going to be that open and honest with you. So you might have to do a little bit of research to see when this position was last open and all of that good stuff. And maybe this is their entry-level position and this position is open because we moved that person into another position. Those are all reasons to think about. For example, I was hired for a position that had a really high turnover rate, but because those teachers didn't want to be in that position, they wanted to be in maybe a secondary position or a middle school position, and that's okay. We sometimes just need to take that entry-level position into a school district and then see where we can move around there. And that's good to because you're like, okay, well, they recognize then as an administrator where my strengths are and will work with me to help that. So that's kind of cool to see that they do that. The other question I love to ask is, what kind of support system will I have as a new teacher? Ooh, in the state of Pennsylvania, we have the teacher mentoring program. And, if they don't talk about that, I would ask about that. In other states, they might have a requirement that you complete a teacher mentoring program, but maybe they don't provide you with a mentor, or maybe they don't pay for the mentor. I have had some teacher colleagues that had to pay for their mentor teacher out of their own salary. So those are things that I didn't know to ask as a teacher job seeker.
Right.
And that's an expensive question to ask. So asking about that and what they do and do they value new teachers? Because that first year, friends, is hard.
Right.
You want to really set yourself up to have a support system. And if you take a job knowing you won't have a support system, find yourself a good support system.
Mm-hmm.
A third question is, how are teachers evaluated? what does that district value? Do they look at lesson plans? Do they look at standards alignment? Do they look at state standards or national standards? Do they look at test scores? Right. All of you just went, do people do that? Yes, unfortunately. Do they look at parental involvement? Do they look at creativity? Do they actually look at how you're teaching and those sort of things? Another question is, what are some ways your school involves parents in the education process? I love this question as a parent. I have a child with some special needs, so it's great for me to see a teacher that's excited about parental involvement. And as an administrator, this, having a teacher who wants parent partners and who has ideas for parent partnerships, those are all things that will differentiate you from other job seekers. That being said, there is no need to grill the employers at this point. It's not the Spanish Inquisition, my friends. 2 or 3 questions are sufficient. You might even ask one question, especially if there's opportunity to interview later on. You do want to have questions for the interview process, but you're really at this point asking enough questions that will help you to get an idea of, is this a school that you're really interested in? Do you want to follow up aggressively with this school? Or is this like you were a tier 1 and you just dropped to a tier 3? So really kind of gauging the district and where it fits with you. So that's a great way of doing it.
Absolutely. I love that idea of don't just find a job that's going to fit you and that you fit them, not just having a job for the sake of a job. You need to find one that's a great fit for you.
It really is. And, I have students all the time who are a little bit less conservative. I know later on we'll be talking about professional attire, but maybe you really have a lot of tattoos or a lot of piercings, or, you love your bright green hair. There's school districts out there who would accept that and be very open with those things. Yes, I say be conservative and that sort of thing, but, if you do your research and see, okay, ABC inner city school doesn't mind my tattoos or my piercings or my green hair, and you find that fit and that's important to you, then do your research and find those things out. Members of the LGBTQ plus community, schools that are more open about piercings and tattoos also tend to be much more open about all the other things and different religions. Maybe you want to teach at a parochial school. Ask those questions, do your research. There is something out there that will fit you and your personality and your style. You just got to know what you want and then research how to find those things.
And lean into those passion areas. So if you're passionate about children with specific learning disabilities or children who have multiple disabilities, lean into that and grow that passion.
Right. And, if you know, I'm a K-12 certification, and I love to say certified but not qualified. I am certified to teach strings. Y'all don't want me to teach anything that has a string, okay? And I know that about myself. I know I am a junior high choir, middle school, general music. That's my jam. That's my passion. And that's where I landed. And that was because I know that about myself. And so if you know that there's a particular area that you are just really good at, and even though you're K-12 certified, or even though maybe you're dual certified in early childhood and special education, but you really want a life skills classroom, embrace that, go for it, and let administrators know. You will probably be asked, where do you see yourself? What kind of classroom do you see yourself in? Be honest. If you see yourself in a senior high life skills class because you just love that group of students, please tell them that. And, it's okay for them to say, I had an administrator, I was a finalist for a position, and he said, if we just had an elementary position, we would totally put you in it, but you're really not a senior high band person. I know that about myself, but I mean, it was the end of July. I was getting a little desperate, and it ended up leading to another opportunity, but you just have to embrace those things about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Erin. I can't wait to get out part 2 of our conversation. In the meantime, where can my listeners connect with you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. You can find me. I'm on there as Erin Lewis, or linkedin.com/in/Erin Lewis 13. You can also connect with me on Instagram. I'm Erin Lewis 13 there as well.
Thank you so much. All right, guys, till next time, we'll see you later. And remember, you have the edgy magic within you. Have a great day.
All right, friends, I just want to pause us here. Remember, all these tips and strategies that Erin's sharing with us can be found at www.sfessich.com/ 10. That's 10. I'll repeat that. It's www.sfecich.com/ and the number 10. Remember all these tips and strategies. We have a go-to worksheet. You're going to love it. I can't wait for you to check it out.
There you have it, friends. Remember that you have the EduMagic within you. I need you in my professional learning network, so please make sure that you subscribe and share all that you are learning and doing in and out of the classroom with #EduMagic. Until then, I'll see you next time.